A young Olympic swimmer vanished during a routine training swim in the ocean, leaving no trace behind, and with the only logical explanation that she drowned. But 4 years later her father, who never gave up the relentless searches, finds something left at the base of a buoy, a discovery that would change everything. The cold ocean enveloped Jack Callahan as he descended into its silent depths. Early morning light pierced the blue-green water in pale shafts, illuminating the rocky seabed below. His dive light swept methodically across patches of twisted seaweed and sand as he moved with practiced precision. Each breath from his oxygen tank released a stream of bubbles that rushed toward the surface. The only sound in this underwater world, his weathered hand sifted through silt and broken shells, always searching. The familiar ache of disappointment settled in his chest as he found nothing, just like the hundreds of dives before this one. Above him, his small boat, the Sea Warden, drifted with the gentle current. He'd anchored near the edge of Pelican's Reach, several miles from the shoreline of Crescent Bay, the small coastal town he called home, but not really home, not since Mia disappeared. 4 years since his 19-year-old daughter vanished without a trace in these same waters. 4 years of diving every day, searching every inch of seabed he could reach, hoping for any sign of her. Mia Callahan had been a rising star, newly qualified for the Olympic team in open water swimming, not yet a household name. She'd finished mid-tier in her events, still flying under the radar of major media attention, but she was destined for greatness. Everyone who saw her swim knew it. Her dedication was unmatched. She'd trained in these waters for years, following the same route each morning from Crescent Bay Pier to Pelican's Reach, around the blue water buoy and back, a challenging 4-mile round trip. For years Jack had accompanied her on these training swims, following alongside in his boat, watching over her with a protectiveness only a father could understand. But in the 6 months before she disappeared, Mia had begun insisting on swimming alone. "Dad, I need to do this by myself," she told him firmly. "Wait for me at the dock, I'll be fine." And he'd reluctantly agreed, respecting her independence while silently worrying every minute until she returned safely to shore. Except for that day 4 years ago when she didn't come back, Jack remembered the frantic hours that followed, calling the Beach Rescue Authority, organizing search parties, scanning the coastline from his boat, while praying to spot her bright swim cap bobbing in the waves. But they found nothing, not Mia, not her gear, not a single trace. As the owner of a diving company, Jack knew these waters better than almost anyone, the currents, the hidden reefs, the treacherous spots where even experienced swimmers could get into trouble. Yet his expertise had yielded nothing in the search for his daughter. After weeks of searching, both he and the police had been forced to acknowledge the most likely scenario: Mia was no longer alive. The ocean claimed swimmers, sometimes even elite ones, but Jack wouldn't stop looking. He needed to find his daughter, to bring her home, to give her a proper burial she deserved. That much, his only child, his pride, the talented girl with her whole life ahead of her. Today something had drawn Jack farther from Pelican's Reach than usual. A restless instinct. He couldn't ignore a whisper that maybe, just maybe, he'd missed something out here. After hours of searching, Jack noticed his oxygen tank running low. Reluctantly, he began his ascent to the surface, his joints protesting after the long dive. As his head broke the water, he realized with concern that he'd ventured much farther than intended. His boat was barely visible in the distance. Jack began swimming toward the Sea Warden, his dive gear weighing him down. After several hundred yards, his muscles burning with fatigue, he paused to catch his breath. That's when he spotted a buoy nearby, not the blue water buoy that Mia had used as a turning point, but a different one farther out and rarely checked. Grateful for the rest, Jack swam to the buoy and grabbed onto its rusted metal frame. As he caught his breath, he happened to look up at the structure towering above the waterline. Something was strapped to the center of the buoy, some kind of device. Curiosity piqued, Jack pulled himself up on the buoy's platform, his wet hand slipping on the corroded metal. Reaching the device, he carefully unstrapped it and examined the object in his hands. It was a GoPro camera encased in a waterproof housing. The case was worn by sea and weather, but something about it seemed strangely familiar. "Someone must have left this here," he murmured to himself, turning it over in his hands. The case was bulkier than the standard GoPro housing, a high-end model designed to withstand deeper depths. Jack recognized it immediately. It was the same model he'd purchased for Mia, insisting on the best protection money could buy. What a coincidence, he thought, but as he turned the case over, his heart nearly stopped there on the Back was a familiar sticker, a small blue dolphin with the letters MC beneath it. His hands began to tremble. This wasn't just any camera, it was Mia's camera, the one he'd given her, the one she'd carried with her on every swim. Jack couldn't believe his eyes. He quickly opened the waterproof case, his fingers fumbling with the latches. The GoPro inside was intact, though the battery was completely dead. He traced his fingers over the device, remembering the day he'd given it to her. "Take this with you," he'd insisted when she'd started swimming alone. "Record your sessions. I want to see your progress." She'd rolled her eyes but accepted it with a smile. "Okay, Dad, if it makes you feel better." Jack carefully placed the camera into his waterproof bag and swam back to his boat with renewed energy. His diving companion, an old friend who often accompanied him on these searches, was waiting on deck with a concerned expression. "You went farther than usual today, Jack," his friend said. "The sun's getting high. We should head back." "You're right," Jack replied, climbing aboard. His hands still trembling, he pulled the camera from his bag. "But look what I found." His friend's eyes widened in recognition. "Is that?" Jack nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. They quickly prepared to return to Crescent Bay. As they approached the harbor, Jack thanked his friend and apologized for having to rush off. His friend clasped his shoulder in understanding. After changing from his diving suit into dry clothes, Jack climbed into his car, the GoPro clutched tightly in his hand. 4 years of searching, and finally he had something, a clue, a connection to Mia. Whatever was on this camera might tell him what happened to his daughter, and he was determined to find out. Jack's hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as he pulled out his phone and dialed Detective Morgan, the officer who had been assigned to Mia's case 4 years ago. Detective Morgan speaking, came the gruff but familiar voice. "It's Jack Callahan," he said, his voice tense with excitement. "I found something. Mia's GoPro camera. It was strapped to a buoy miles out from her usual route." There was a moment of silence on the line. "You found her camera after all this time?" "Yes, and it might have footage from the day she disappeared. I need to bring it in. I'm in a meeting that starts in 10 minutes. Detective Morgan replied, sounding genuinely frustrated by the timing. "I can't meet with you immediately." Jack's heart sank, but the detective continued, "But you can drop it off at the station. I'll alert our forensic tech team to expect you. They can help access the content, and we'll keep it safe as evidence." "Thank you," Jack said, relief washing over him. "I'll head there now. I should be free in a few hours." Morgan added, "We can talk then." Jack suddenly remembered his afternoon plans. "Oh, shoot, I'm sorry, Detective. Actually, I meant to attend a charity event, a reunion lunch with some former professional divers and athletes. I promised a friend I'd give a speech. I can cancel and say there's an emergency at the police station. Though you know what, that might not be necessary," Morgan assured him. "Just drop off the camera for now. Depending on the forensic tech's assessment, we'll figure it out later. We can meet up afterward." As Jack ended the call, he glanced at the clock on his dashboard. He still had a few hours before the event. 20 minutes later, Jack arrived at the Crescent Bay police station, camera in hand. The officer at the front desk recognized him immediately. "Mr. Callahan," she said with a nod. Detective Morgan called ahead. "Let me take you to our tech lab." Jack was led to a small room filled with computers and specialized equipment. A man in his 30s looked up from a workstation. "You must be Jack Callahan," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Ethan Parker, forensic tech analyst." Detective Morgan briefed me on your find. A uniformed officer stood nearby, clearly there to witness the handling of potential evidence. "I found this camera strapped to a buoy miles offshore," Jack explained carefully, placing the device on the desk. "It belonged to my daughter Mia. She disappeared 4 years ago while training for the Olympics." The tech nodded solemnly. "Let's see what we've got." Ethan worked methodically, first photographing the camera as it was, then carefully removing the battery and memory card. The battery was visibly swollen. "The card looks intact," he said, inspecting it under a magnifier. "No major corrosion." "That's a good sign." He inserted the memory card into a specialized reader connected to his computer. "Will make a forensic copy first to preserve the original data." Jack stood tensely behind him as the files transferred to the computer. After a few minutes, Ethan opened the first video file. The screen filled with Mia's face, and Jack's knees nearly buckled. She was alive, smiling, her wet hair plastered to her head as she adjusted the camera on the buoy. Testing. Her voice came through the speakers, slightly distorted by wind, but unmistakably hers. "Perfect spot to capture my training today." The footage showed her carefully Securing the GoPro to the buoy, positioning it to record her swimming approach, she looked happy, energetic. Exactly as Jack remembered her, the next clip showed Mia treading water beside the buoy, talking directly to the camera. "Day 42 of Olympic training," she said. Slightly breathless, "Coach says my endurance is improving, but my turns still need work," she sighed, her expression suddenly serious. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm cut out for this. The pressure is intense, and I'm nowhere near the level of the top competitors. If I even make it to the games, will I just embarrass myself?" Jack's throat tightened. He'd never known she harbored these doubts. "The footage," continued Mia, still speaking to the camera, when suddenly her attention shifted. She looked to the side, surprised. "Oh, hello," she called out to someone off camera. A young man swam into frame, though his face was partially obscured by water droplets on the lens. The camera angle mounted on the buoy above them showed only the top portion of his head, his eyes, and wet hair visible, but not his full face. "Hey there," the young man said, his voice friendly. "Didn't expect to see anyone else out this far. Just training." Mia replied. "I'm Mia Martin," the young man said. "You're really pushing it, swimming way out here alone." "I'm training for the Olympics," Mia explained. "Open water swimming, no way." "That's amazing." Martin sounded genuinely impressed. "Are you going to be famous?" Mia laughed hardly. "I'm new to the elite level, haven't made a big media splash yet, still flying under the radar." "Well, you look like a pro to me," Martin said. "Hey, want to race?" "Just for fun. I used to compete in college." "Sure," Mia agreed, smiling. "Where to?" Martin pointed toward a distant landmark. "How about to that outcropping in back?" "You're on," Mia said, adjusting her goggles. The two swimmers moved out of frame, and for half an hour the camera recorded only the gentle movement of the ocean. Then, in the distance, a speedboat appeared, crossing the frame far from the buoy. The fisheye lens of the GoPro distorted the perspective, making it appear even farther away. The camera only captured the lower half of the boat, including what appeared to be a company logo on its hull. Jack leaned forward, squinting at the image. "Can you enhance that logo?" Ethan nodded, pausing the video and zooming in on the boat. Despite the enhancement, the image remained somewhat blurry, but the logo was just clear enough to make out a stylized wave with some text beneath it. "That looks familiar," Jack murmured, taking out his phone to snap a picture of the screen. They continued watching, but Mia never returned to the buoy. The footage showed hours of empty ocean until the battery finally died. "Can you go back to the segment with the young man?" Jack asked, his voice tight. Ethan rewound the footage, and they watched the interaction again, trying to glean any additional details about Martin. The tech made notes about his approximate age, hair color, and the limited facial features visible in the frame. Using a reverse image search, Ethan found a match for the boat logo. "It's from Ocean Elite Marine," he said. "They're a local company that provides boats and equipment for water sports." Jack suddenly recalled seeing boats with that same logo at the marina earlier that day. "We'll show this to Detective Morgan and start investigating both the company and this Martin character," Ethan assured him. "We'll also try to create a sketch of the man based on what we can see in the footage." Jack nodded, feeling both hope and dread mingling in his chest. "Thank you. Please keep me updated." He glanced at his watch and realized he needed to leave for the event. "I have to go now, but I'll check in later." As he walked out of the station toward his car, Jack's mind raced with possibilities. After 4 years of nothing, he finally had something tangible, a lead, and he wasn't going to let it slip away. The sports club center was bustling with activity when Jack arrived. Olympic banners decorated the walls of the event hall, and the smell of chlorine from the adjacent swimming pool permeated the air. Volunteers in matching T-shirts directed guests, and a small stage had been set up at the front of the room. An event organizer spotted Jack and hurried over. "Mr. Callahan, we were beginning to worry you're up in 15 minutes. "Sorry for cutting it close," Jack apologized, following her behind the stage. "No problem, we understand you're a busy man," she said, gesturing for him to take a seat. "We'll just touch up your appearance quickly before you go on." The preparation was minimal, just enough to prevent the stage lights from washing him out. This was a community event, not a television appearance. Jack tried to focus on the speech he'd prepared weeks ago, but his mind kept drifting back to the GoPro footage, Mia's voice so clear and vibrant, and the mysterious Martin who had appeared from nowhere. "5 minutes, Mr. Callahan," the organizer said, handing him a bottle of water. When it was time, Jack stepped onto the stage, greeted by polite applause. The audience was mostly comprised of former athletes, coaches, and supporters of the local swimming community. Everyone here knew about Mia's disappearance. It had been a local tragedy, though it never developed into a national story. The official narrative had settled on a tragic drowning accident during solo training, sadly not unheard of even among experienced open water swimmers. Jack cleared his throat and began his prepared speech. About water safety and the importance of supporting young athletes, he spoke of resilience and determination qualities. His daughter had embodied. The audience listened attentively, nodding and applauding at appropriate moments. After thunderous applause, Jack stepped down from the stage and made his way to a table where his old friends from his own swimming days waited. They greeted him warmly, clapping him on the back and pulling out a chair. "Great speech, Jack," said Tom, a former Olympic swimmer who had trained with Jack decades ago. "You always had a way with words." "Thanks," Jack replied, accepting a glass of water. His mind still whirling with the day's discoveries, he couldn't help sharing. "Listen, something incredible happened today. I found Mia's GoPro camera." His friend stared at him in disbelief. "After 4 years?" asked Mike, another former athlete. "Where?" "Strapped to a buoy miles out from her usual route," Jack explained it. "Had footage from the day she disappeared." Lowering his voice, he described what he'd seen at the police station and showed them the picture he'd taken of the boat logo on his phone. Tom leaned in for a closer look. "That's Ocean Elite Marine. They're one of the local companies that sponsor our local athletes in the Olympic program. They weren't around in our day, only became prominent in the last 7 years or so." "Really? Do you know anything about them?" Jack asked. "Not much, except they've been generous with equipment donations and transportation for water athletes," Tom replied. "In fact," he added, gesturing across the hall, "they have a booth set up right over there." Jack turned to look where Tom was pointing. Indeed, a sleek display booth with the Ocean Elite Marine logo stood against the far wall, staffed by 2 men in matching polo shirts. "I'm going to talk to them," Jack said, standing up abruptly. His friends exchanged concerned glances, but didn't try to stop him. Jack approached the booth with measured steps, trying to appear casual despite his racing heart. The 2 staff members looked up as he approached, one middle-aged with graying temples, the other younger with an eager smile. "Good afternoon," the older man greeted him. "Interested in our water sports equipment?" "Actually, I'm curious about your company," Jack said. "I understand you sponsor Olympic athletes." "We do indeed," the younger man replied enthusiastically. "It's part of our corporate social responsibility program. We provide boats, equipment, and transportation for promising athletes who might not otherwise have the resources to train properly." "That's commendable," Jack said, then carefully added, "Do either of you know someone named Martin associated with your company?" The 2 men exchanged a quick glance, their smiles faltering slightly. "Martin," the older one repeated. "There might be several employees with that name. Do you have a last name?" Jack shook his head, then decided to take a risk. He pulled out his phone and showed them the screenshot of the boat with their logo. "I'm trying to identify this particular boat and possibly a young man named Martin who might have been using it." The reaction was immediate and unmistakable. Both men tensed, their friendly demeanor replaced by obvious nervousness. "I'm not sure about that specific vessel," the younger man stammered. "We have quite a fleet, you see." The older man quickly added, "If you need information about our boats, you should speak with the staff at the marina. We're just here for marketing purposes." Jack thanked them and walked away, his suspicions heightened by their reaction. As he headed back toward his friend's table, he glanced back at the booth and saw the younger staff member had stepped away, pacing anxiously with a phone pressed to his ear. The man ran his hand through his hair in an agitated gesture, then motioned to his colleague within moments. They began packing up their display materials, clearly preparing to leave. Jack changed direction, bypassing his friend's table and heading straight for the exit. Something wasn't right, and his instincts, the same ones that had kept him alive during dangerous dives, were screaming at him to follow these men. As he neared the door, the event organizer intercepted him. "Mr. Callahan, where are you going? You're supposed to give a closing speech in 20 minutes. "I'm sorry," Jack said firmly. "Family emergency, I have to go." Without waiting for a response, he pushed through the doors and hurried to the parking lot. He was just in time to see the 2 men loading equipment into a van emblazoned with the Ocean Elite Marine logo. Jack rushed to his own car, his heart pounding. What he was doing was impulsive, perhaps even foolish, but he couldn't shake the feeling that these men were Connected to Mia's disappearance, as the company van pulled out of the parking lot, Jack started his engine. Determined to follow them and discover whatever truth they were hiding, Jack kept a careful distance behind the ocean. Elite Marine van as it wound through Crescent Bay's coastal roads, the rational part of his mind questioned what he was doing following strangers based on a hunch and their nervous reaction to a name, but the father in him, the part that had never stopped searching for Mia, knew this was no coincidence. "Please let this lead somewhere," he whispered, gripping the steering wheel tightly. His phone rang, startling him. Detective Morgan's name flashed on the screen. Jack answered through his car's Bluetooth system. "Mr. Callahan, I've reviewed the footage," Morgan said without preamble. "I've put together a team and we're heading to the marina now to investigate Ocean Elite Marine. Our team at the station has already been in contact with the company earlier regarding the case." "I'm already on it," Jack replied, keeping his eyes on the van ahead. "I'm following 2 of their employees. They were at the charity event, but left suddenly after I asked about Martin and showed them the boat image." Following them, Morgan's voice sharpened. "Jack, that could be dangerous. Are you certain these men pose a threat?" "No, but they're acting suspicious. They claim to be just marketing staff, but they seemed frightened when I mentioned Martin." "Where are they heading? Toward the marina?" Jack frowned as the van turned onto a side road, moving away from the main harbor. "No, they're going in the opposite direction, taking the coastal road past the headland." "Share your location with me," Morgan instructed. "And Jack, be careful. Don't approach these men. Call me immediately if something happens." "Will do," Jack promised, then ended the call. He intended to share his location as requested, but the van suddenly accelerated, forcing Jack to speed up to keep them in sight. In his haste to follow, he forgot about Morgan's request. The coastal road curved around a rugged headland, offering breathtaking views of the ocean on one side and steep cliffs on the other. After several miles, the van signaled and turned down a narrow, unmarked road that Jack had never noticed before. He slowed, waiting until the van disappeared around a bend before following the road descended toward the coastline, ending at what appeared to be an abandoned marina. Unlike the main harbor in Crescent Bay, this facility was dilapidated with rusted docks and weathered buildings. The van pulled up near one of the structures and parked. Jack stopped his car well before the marina entrance, parking behind a stand of coastal pines that provided cover. There were no other vehicles in sight, which would make his own car conspicuous if he drove any closer. "This doesn't look like an active Ocean Elite facility," he murmured to himself. Cutting the engine, exiting his car quietly, Jack approached on foot, staying hidden behind vegetation and old equipment scattered around the perimeter. He watched as the 2 men from the event unloaded some boxes from their van and carried them toward the dock, where they met with 3 other men. Just as Jack crept closer to hear their conversation, a large speedboat, more accurately described as a crossover vessel, approached the dock. 3 men disembarked, greeting the others with tense expressions. "We need to move quickly," one of the newcomers said, his voice just loud enough for Jack to hear. "Secure the area. The boss is waiting on the yacht, and he's not happy." Jack ducked behind a stack of old fuel barrels as 2 men began patrolling the perimeter of the marina, finding a better hiding spot beneath a tattered tarpaulin covering what appeared to be old boat parts. He remained motionless as one of the guards passed. Just feet away from his hiding place, Jack heard the sound of another vehicle approaching. Car doors opened and closed, followed by male voices, and his blood froze. The unmistakable sound of women whimpering. "Get in the boat," a gruff voice ordered. "Keep your heads down and stay quiet." "Please," a female voice begged softly. "We've done everything you asked." "Shut up and move," came the harsh reply. The sound of footsteps on the wooden dock followed, then the rumble of the boat's engine starting up. Jack desperately wanted to look to see if Mia might be among the women, but he didn't dare emerge from his hiding place while the guards were still patrolling. As the boat's engine faded into the distance, Jack heard 2 men conversing nearby. "How could this happen?" one said, his voice strained with worry. "No idea," the other replied. "They've been safe for 4 years, and now the police start sniffing around them. Maybe someone inside leaked something, or one of those girls talked. Somehow the boss is going ballistic. Said, if we don't clean this up, we'll be joining those guys from last year at the bottom of the channel. Let's get out of here. We've done our part." Jack remained perfectly still as the men returned to their van and drove away. Only when the sound of their engine had completely faded did he cautiously emerge from his hiding place. Standing on the abandoned dock, he stared out at the ocean where the speedboat had disappeared. His worst fears were confirmed. Mia hadn't drowned in a training accident. She'd been taken and, from what he just heard, she might have been held captive for the entire 4 years she'd been missing. With shaking hands, Jack pulled out his phone and called Detective Morgan. "Jack, where are you?" Morgan demanded. "You never shared your location." "I'm at an abandoned marina about 10 miles north of Crescent Bay," Jack said urgently. "Beyond the northern headland, down an unmarked road. I just witnessed what I believe is a human trafficking operation involving Ocean Elite Marine human trafficking," Morgan repeated sharply. "Yes, I heard them talking about girls they've kept safe for 4 years. The exact time he has been missing, and I saw a speedboat taking women somewhere offshore." Jack's voice broke. "I think my daughter might be one of them." "Stay where you are," Morgan ordered. "We'll send units to your location immediately." "No," Jack said forcefully. "Don't come here. There's nothing left to find. We need to follow that boat. I'm heading back to the main marina now. Meet me there with whatever boats you can get. I know these waters. I can help track them." There was a brief pause before Morgan replied, "All right, we'll coordinate with Harbor Patrol and meet you at the main marina in 20 minutes. "Hurry," Jack pleaded. "I think they're moving the girls because they know we're on to them. This might be our only chance." He ended the call and raced back to his car, his mind reeling with what he discovered after 4 years of believing Mia had drowned. The truth was far more horrifying, but also offered a sliver of hope. If she was still being held captive, she might still be alive. And if she was alive, Jack was going to find her and bring her home, no matter what it took. Jack's tires squealed as he pulled into the Crescent Bay Marina parking lot. Detective Morgan was already there with 4 other officers along with the Harbor Patrol and members of the Coast Guard. Jack Morgan called, waving him over to where they had gathered near the emergency response dock. 2 police boats and a larger Coast Guard vessel were being prepared for immediate departure. Jack rushed over, still breathing heavily from adrenaline. "They're taking them to a yacht somewhere offshore," he reported. "I heard them say the boss is waiting on the yacht." Morgan nodded grimly. "We've got Marine units standing by and a helicopter on the way. Harbor Patrol has been tracking the crossover boat you described using their coastal surveillance system." A Harbor Patrol officer stepped forward, tablet in hand. "The vessel was last seen heading southeast along the coastline, approximately 7 miles offshore. Its current speed suggests it's making for the Channel Islands area." "That's where they're going," Jack said with certainty. "There are dozens of secluded coves around those islands where a yacht could anchor without drawing attention." Morgan turned to Jack. "I appreciate your help in uncovering this, but I need you to stay here while we handle the operation." "No way," Jack said firmly. "I'm coming with you." "Jack, this isn't a request. This is potentially a dangerous situation involving armed criminals. I know these waters better than anyone here," Jack insisted, his voice rising. "I've been diving around those islands for 20 years. There are underwater caves, hidden approaches, and dangerous currents." Morgan hesitated, clearly torn between following protocol and recognizing the value of Jack's expertise. "Besides," Jack added more quietly, "if Mia is on that yacht, I need to be there. She hasn't seen me in 4 years. She's going to be terrified, traumatized. She'll need her father." The detective sighed deeply, then nodded. "Fine, you can come on the lead boat with me, but you follow orders. If we encounter resistance, you stay back." "Understood." "Understood." Jack agreed immediately. They boarded quickly, Jack helping the captain plan the most efficient route based on the speedboat's last known heading. As they pulled away from the dock, Jack felt a strange mixture of terror and hope. After years of searching, he might finally find Mia, but what condition would she be in? What had these people done to her? The police radio crackled to life. "Air unit is airborne. ETA to search area 15 minutes." Morgan acknowledged the transmission, then turned to Jack. "We have officers researching Ocean Elite Marine now. The company appears legitimate on the surface. They sponsor athletes, provide equipment for competitions, the usual corporate community involvement, but we're digging deeper into their ownership and financial structure." The men at the abandoned marina mentioned the boss, Jack recalled. "Someone important enough to have people terrified of disappointing him." "We'll find out who's behind this," Morgan promised. "Right now our priority is rescuing the women." The boats cut through the water at top speed, the ocean spray stinging Jack's face as they raced against time. The helicopter appeared overhead, its rotors thundering as it swept ahead of them to begin the search. After nearly an hour, the radio crackled. "Again, this is Air Unit 1. We've spotted a crossover boat approaching a large yacht approximately 12 miles southeast of your position, sending coordinates now." The boat captain adjusted course immediately. As they neared the coordinates, they reduced speed to avoid detection using the helicopter as their eyes from above. Air Unit 1 reports the crossover has reached the yacht. The radio operator announced they appear to be transferring people on board. Jack grabbed a pair of binoculars from the cabin and scanned the horizon. After a moment, he spotted them, a sleek white yacht with a crossover boat now secured alongside it. "I see them," he said, his voice tight with tension. "About 2 miles ahead." Through the binoculars, Jack watched as figures moved on the deck of the yacht. Even from this distance he could make out what appeared to be 3 women in dark clothing being escorted below deck. His heart pounded painfully in his chest. Could one of them be Mia? "All units maintain approach speed," Morgan ordered through the radio. "We don't want to alert them to our presence until we're closer." The tactical officers on board began preparing their gear, checking weapons and communication equipment. One team member was already suited up in diving gear, ready to enter the water if necessary. Air Unit 1 reports movement on the yacht. The radio announced they appear to have spotted us. The yacht is now getting underway. "Full speed," Morgan commanded, and the boat's engines roared as they surged forward. Jack kept his binoculars trained on the yacht. "The crossover boat is pulling away from the yacht," he reported. 2 armed men on board. As they closed the distance, the crossover boat suddenly changed course, heading directly toward them. "They're going to try to intercept us," the captain warned. "Air Unit, can you maintain visual on the yacht?" Morgan called into the radio. "Affirmative. The yacht is increasing speed, heading southwest. We're seeing movement on deck. The women are being brought back up and they appear to be putting on diving equipment." "Diving equipment?" Jack echoed, alarm shooting through him. "They're going to put them in the water. There are underwater caves all through this area. If they know the caves, they could disappear completely." Morgan relayed this information to the helicopter and the other boats. "We need to move now. If they get those women underwater, we might lose them." The crossover boat was now clearly visible, racing toward them with 2 men visible on deck, weapons in hand. "They've spotted us," the tactical officer shouted as the yacht suddenly changed course. "Move! Move! Everyone take cover!" Morgan shouted as the first shots rang out. Across the water, Jack ducked behind the cabin wall, his heart racing. The helicopter swooped lower, providing support from above, while the second police boat moved to intercept the crossover. Through the chaos, Jack kept his binoculars fixed on the distant yacht. "They're putting them in the water," he shouted. "The women and some men, they're all going overboard with diving gear. Hold your fire!" Jack shouted desperately to the officers. "If you hit those oxygen tanks, they could explode." The tactical team leader relayed the warning through his radio, and the helicopter adjusted its approach, firing warning shots near but not directly at the crossover boat. "We can't let them get away," Morgan said, coordinating with the tactical team. 3 officers in diving gear were preparing to enter the water. "I'm going too," Jack declared, already moving toward the diving equipment. Morgan grabbed his arm. "Absolutely not, Jack. You're staying on this boat. Those underwater caves are like a maze." Jack argued desperately. "Your divers don't know them like I do. If Mia goes down there, I might never find her again." Before Morgan could respond, more gunfire erupted from the crossover boat, forcing everyone to take cover again. The helicopter fired warning shots, driving the crossover away from their position in the confusion when no one was looking his way. Jack seized his opportunity. He grabbed a diving mask, fins, and a spare breathing apparatus. It wasn't a complete set, no oxygen tank, but it would have to do. While the officers focused on the firefight with the crossover boat, Jack slipped over the side of the police boat and into the churning water. The cold shocked his system, but decades of diving experience took over. He surfaced, once getting his bearings and spotting the yacht about 500 yards away. Then, taking a deep breath, he dove beneath the waves, swimming with powerful strokes toward the only thing that mattered, finding his daughter before she disappeared. "Please, Mia," he thought desperately as he began swimming. "Hold on, I'm coming." Jack swam with powerful strokes, propelling himself toward the area where the kidnappers and their captives had disappeared beneath the waves. He couldn't stay underwater long without a tank, so he alternated between surface swimming and brief dives, trying to catch Glimpses of the divers below. During one such dive, he spotted them. The dive team had intercepted the kidnappers about 30 feet below the surface. An underwater struggle was unfolding in slow motion. Jack could see that each of the 3 women was handcuffed to one of the men, making it difficult for the police divers to separate them. The criminal divers were armed with spear guns, which they were using to keep the police at bay. One rescue officer was trying to wrestle the spear gun away from a kidnapper while protecting the woman handcuffed to him. Jack surfaced for air, his lungs burning. He couldn't help in the underwater fight, not without proper equipment, and certainly not against armed opponents, but perhaps he could still do something. Looking around, he noticed that in the chaos, everyone's attention was focused on either the underwater struggle or the ongoing standoff between the police boats and the crossover. The yacht sat relatively unattended, its crew either in the water or manning the crossover. Jack made a split-second decision. Instead of diving back down, he swam toward the yacht, approaching from the stern where he would be less likely to be seen. Using skills honed through decades of diving, he pulled himself up onto the yacht's swimming platform and rolled onto the deck. Dripping and gasping after catching his breath, Jack crept along the deck, staying low and searching for anything he could use to help in the yacht's dive preparation area. He found what he was looking for, a rack of spear guns apparently readied, but then abandoned in the rush to evacuate. Jack grabbed one of the weapons, checking that it was loaded and ready to fire. His plan was to return to the water, armed this time, and try to help free Mia, but as he turned to head back to the stern, he heard the unmistakable click of a gun hammer behind him. "Don't move," said a young man's voice, slightly slurred. "Leave the gun or I'll shoot." Jack turned slowly to face his captor. Standing before him was a young man in his 20s, his wet hair slicked back, eyes bloodshot, a bottle of expensive liquor in one hand and a handgun in the other. Jack recognized him immediately from the GoPro footage. "Martin, you took my daughter," Jack said, his voice low and dangerous. "I'm here to take her back." Martin swayed slightly, the effects of alcohol evident in his unsteady stance. "Her father, the diver guy she always talked about." "Tell me why," Jack demanded, keeping the spear gun pointed downward but not relinquishing it. "Why did you take her?" Martin took a swig from his bottle, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. "We're making her a better future. She's 19, talented. We're training her for the Olympics." Jack scoffed, his grip tightening on the spear gun. "By kidnapping her, holding her prisoner for 4 years. Don't come any closer," Martin warned, raising his gun as Jack shifted his weight. "I didn't do nothing to them, you know. I wished I could, but I wasn't even allowed to get near them." His face twisted with bitterness. "They were for my father." Jack's blood ran cold. "Your father?" Martin nodded, taking another unsteady step toward Jack. "It's a sad thing, really. I could only help my old man get what he wanted. He loves athletic young women, always had a thing for them." His voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "He could make her successful, though, if she did her job properly." "Stay where you are," Jack warned, raising the spear gun slightly. "If you come any closer, I'll shoot." But Martin seemed beyond hearing, lost in his drunken confession. He continued, advancing the gun in his hand, wavering. "Martin," a sharp voice cut through the tension. "What the hell are you doing?" An older man appeared on deck, dressed in an immaculate white shirt. Despite the chaos, he held a gun pointed directly at Jack, his stance steady and confident. The family resemblance between him and Martin was unmistakable, the same eyes, the same jawline, but the older man's face was hardened by years of cruelty. "I'll shoot you myself," the man, clearly Martin's father, snarled to Jack. "My useless son can't do his job properly." He turned his cold gaze on Martin. "Just admitted, boy, you must have talked to the police about what we did. That's why they're sniffing around us now." "I didn't tell the police about the girls, Father." Martin protested, his voice suddenly childlike. "It wasn't me." "Shut up, of course it was you. I know you always wanted one of my girls." His father spat. "Who else would have talked? You've always been weak, always had second thoughts." While they argued, Jack slowly adjusted his grip on the spear gun, preparing to fire. "I didn't say anything," Martin insisted, his face flushed with alcohol and emotion. "I swear it doesn't matter now," the man said dismissively, turning his full attention to Jack. "You're the diver, Father. Aren't you been searching for your little girl all this time?" "Well, your search ends here." The man raised his gun, aiming directly at Jack's head. "I've built too much to let someone like you destroy it." All in that split second, 2 shots rang out simultaneously. Martin fired his gun at his father, the bullet striking him in the head. At the same moment, Jack fired the spear gun, initially aimed at the Father, but without the resistance of water, the spear flew erratically missing the target entirely and instead embedding itself in Martin's shoulder. The chaotic, unpredictable force of the shot sent him reeling. The old man crumpled to the deck, blood pooling beneath him. Martin stood frozen, the gun still gripped tightly in his trembling hand, his body rigid with shock. Pain radiated through his shoulder, where the spear gun's bolt had embedded itself, but he didn't move, didn't even flinch, his wide, vacant eyes locked on his father's lifeless body, as though he couldn't quite comprehend what had just happened. His breath came in shallow gasps, each one punctuated by a sharp throb of pain after what felt like an eternity. He raised the bottle to his lips, the liquid burning as it slid down his throat. "I hate you, Grant," he muttered, the words barely audible, tinged with a mixture of grief and sting anger. The shock was broken by a sharp pain in Jack's leg. Looking down, he realized Grant had managed to fire his weapon as well. Blood soaked through Jack's pants where the bullet had struck his thigh. Despite the searing pain, Jack seized the moment of confusion to hobble to the edge of the yacht and dive back into the water. Bleeding and in agony, he swam toward where the underwater struggle continued, determined to reach Mia before his strength gave out. The cold water momentarily numbed the pain in his leg, but each kick sent fresh agony shooting through his body. Blood trailed behind him as he swam toward the front of the yacht where he had last seen Mia underwater. Jack could see the struggle continuing. The police divers had engaged the remaining kidnappers, working to free the women still handcuffed to their captives. Through the churning water and streams of bubbles, Jack spotted Mia still fighting against the man who held her with the last of his strength. Jack swam toward them. The kidnapper saw him approaching and raised a spear gun of his own. Jack had no weapon now, nothing but his determination to save his daughter. As the kidnapper took aim, Jack saw one of the police divers approaching from behind. In perfect coordination, the officer grabbed the kidnapper's arm just as he fired, causing the spear to miss Jack by inches. Jack reached Mia and the struggling kidnapper. Despite his weakening state, he managed to grab the man's dive regulator and yank it from his mouth, just as he had done in the cave. The sudden loss of air caused the kidnapper to panic, loosening his grip on Mia. Together, Jack and the police diver overpowered the kidnapper. The officer quickly cut through the handcuffs, binding Mia to her captor, finally freeing her after 4 long years. Jack's vision began to darken at the edges as blood loss and exhaustion took their toll. The last thing he saw before consciousness slipped away was Mia's face, her eyes wide with recognition and disbelief as she reached for him through the water. Jack awoke to the rhythmic beeping of medical equipment and the gentle rock of a boat blinking against the harsh light. He realized he was lying on a stretcher in what appeared to be a Coast Guard vessel. A medic was applying pressure to his leg wound while another monitored his vital signs. "He's conscious," the medic called out. "Mr. Callahan, try not to move, you've lost a lot of blood." Jack tried to sit up despite the warning. "Mia," he croaked, "where's my daughter?" "Dad, I'm here," came a voice he'd longed to hear for 4 years. Mia appeared at his side, still in her diving suit, but with a blanket draped over her shoulders. Her face was thinner than he remembered her eyes holding shadows that hadn't been there before, but she was alive. She was real. "Mia," he whispered, reaching for her hand, "you're safe now." She took his hand, tears streaming down her face. "You found me after all this time. You actually found me." Jack tried to respond, but a wave of pain cut his words short. The medic intervened, gently pushing Mia back. "He needs immediate medical attention. That bullet needs to come out." Another medic approached, addressing Mia and 2 other young women huddled nearby. "We need to check all of you for injuries as well. You've been through a traumatic experience." One of the women, blonde and visibly shaking, spoke up. "Are they all gone?" "The men who kept us." A police officer standing nearby nodded. "We've neutralized the threat. 2 of the kidnappers from the crossover boat were killed in the exchange of fire. We've arrested the yacht captain and 3 others, including the son, Martin." The relief on the women's face was palpable. The third woman, dark-haired and gaunt, began to sob quietly. Detective Morgan appeared, his expression a mixture of satisfaction and concern as he approached Jack's stretcher. "You are one hell of a stubborn man, Callahan. That was either the bravest or the most foolish thing I've ever seen." Jack managed a weak smile. "Did you get them all?" "We think so. The operation seems to have been run by Grant Whitmore, the man killed on the yacht. He's the owner of Ocean Elite Marine, among other businesses. Preliminary investigation suggests he's been targeting female athletes for years, using his son to help identify and abduct them. He promised to make them successful," Jack said grimly. Morgan Nodded in exchange for their compliance. We've already found evidence linking him to several athletic sponsorships over the years. The FBI is getting involved now. This could be much bigger than we initially thought. The detective turned to Mia. Miss Callahan, I know this is difficult, but can you tell us briefly what happened to you? A more detailed statement can wait until you've received medical attention. Mia looked at her father, drawing strength from his presence. It started that day at the buoy, she began, her voice steadier than Jack would have expected. I was training as usual when Martin approached me in the water. He seemed friendly, just another swimmer. We raced to Pelican's Reach, and on our way back he said his boat was nearby and offered to give me a ride back to Crescent Bay. She paused, swallowing hard. I was tired from the swim and thought it would be nice to rest on the boat. I completely forgot about my GoPro camera. On the buoy, Martin seemed so normal, so harmless. Jack squeezed her hand, encouraging her to continue, but they didn't take me home. They drove to Whitmore's estate instead, and they drugged me. When I woke up, I was locked in a room with Anna and Lily. She gestured to the two other women. Whitmore told me he could make my Olympic dreams come true, that he had connections and resources to turn me into a champion, but I had to cooperate with him. Her voice hardened. When I refused, he threatened to hurt you. Dad, he knew everything about your diving company, our home, your routines. He said, if I didn't obey, you would suffer accidents. First your business would fail, then your home would burn, and finally you'd have a fatal diving incident. Jack felt sick with rage, but he kept his expression calm for Mia's sake, so I stopped fighting back, at least openly. Mia continued, we trained every day in the lake on his property. We were always guarded, always watched. He kept us in shape, said we needed to maintain our athletic builds. Anna and Lily had been there longer than me, and they warned me not to try escaping. Two girls had tried before and never came back. The other women nodded silently, confirming Mia's account. Today was the first time we'd been on the yacht in men to move us to another location. Morgan looked grim. You're safe now, all of you. We'll need full statements later, but right now let's get you all medical attention. The Coast Guard captain announced. They were approaching the harbor. As they neared the dock, Jack could see ambulances waiting with their lights flashing. The paramedics will take you directly to the hospital, Morgan told Jack. I'll need your statement too once the doctors clear you. Jack nodded weakly, the pain in his leg intensifying as the adrenaline of the rescue faded. The son, Martin, he told me everything on the yacht. He admitted what they were doing. We've got him in custody, Morgan assured him. Between your testimony and the evidence we're gathering, they won't see freedom again. As the boat docked, medical teams rushed aboard. Jack was quickly transferred to a gurney while other paramedics attended to Mia and the other women. Mia clung to Jack's hand as they were separated for transport. Dad, I should have been braver. I should have found a way to escape. Despite his pain, Jack managed to smile at his daughter. You survived, that's what matters, and it's a good thing you forgot that camera on the buoy. Tears welled in Mia's eyes as she nodded, understanding the incredible coincidence that had led to her rescue. I love you, Dad. I love you too, sweetheart, Jack replied, his voice breaking. I never stopped looking for you, not for one day. The paramedics gently pulled them apart, explaining that Jack needed immediate surgery. Mia reluctantly let go, watching as they loaded him into an ambulance. We'll take good care of your father, one paramedic assured her, and the officers will bring you to the hospital after your preliminary examination. You'll see him soon. As the ambulance doors closed, Jack caught a final glimpse of Mia standing on the dock surrounded by police and medical personnel. Despite everything she'd endured, she stood tall, her swimmer shoulders straight and proud in the ambulance racing toward the hospital. Jack reflected on the day's events that morning. He had been giving a speech at a charity event, continuing his routine of existing without living, searching without hope. Now, against all odds, he had found his daughter and brought her home. The path ahead would not be easy. Mia and the other women would carry the scars of their captivity. 4 years to come, there would be statements to give, trials to endure, and long journeys of healing for all of them. But for the first time in 4 years, Jack felt truly alive. His daughter was safe, she was free, and he would never let her out of his sight again. As the pain medication took effect and consciousness began to slip away, Jack's last thought was a prayer of gratitude for the stubborn determination that had kept him searching, for the miraculous discovery of the GoPro camera, and for the second chance he and Mia had been given. Against all odds, they had found their way back to each other, and whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together.